Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us. I'm Niall Buchanan of Broadcom, and I'd like to welcome you today to our session on the topic of shift left DevOps with growing Zowe ecosystems. There are lots of new and exciting advancements taking place in this space, and our focus today is Zowe compliant offerings and the new IDE extensions. If you have any questions during the webcast, please feel free to submit those through the chat window. We'll be having a Q&A at the end of the session. Don't forget to hand in your feedback form, and don't forget to contribute to the charity, please. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to our speaker, Zowe Solomon and Michael Barr from Broadcom.
Hey, thank you, Niall. Very excited to be here, folks. Our topic here is shift left DevOps. So you might have, already been started on your path down adopting DevOps with the mainframe, but a key component of DevOps is really pushing more of that towards the left. And when we say left, we mean more so doing more of your automated testing, doing more of your code scanning and all of your transparency and process built in early on, so quality just becomes embedded in. And we're going to be talking about how Zowe and the growing ecosystem around Zowe is enabling a lot of that. Mike will be co-presenting with me. He'll be doing some of the demos. So, we're not going to just talk theory here. We're going to actually demo some of this in action for you. And we'd love to take your Q&A after you watch the webcast. So feel free to start playing the video, Niall.
I'm Zowe Solomon. I'm the Chief Z DevOps Advocate from Broadcom. And today we're going to be talking about the impact that the growing Zowe ecosystem is having on mainframe DevOps, specifically around how it's helping DevOps shift left. As part of that, let's first look at the growth that Zowe is incurring in the last year or so, and how that's powering DevOps to shift left further. Then we'll actually talk about the IDEs that are being built out today that really helps with modernizing the interfaces for developers. Then we'll look at certain automation scenarios, specifically around performance testing that can be shift lefted. And based on that, any questions that you might have, we'll be able to address them at the end as well. All right, so let's talk about Zowe. So Zowe is an open source project that was launched by Broadcom, IBM, and Rocket. The first release of it was in February of 2019. Since then, it has gone through a lot of growth. The components themselves have expanded, and I'll give a quick overview of the 4 major components in Zowe today. The command line interface helps with automation across platforms. The API mediation layer helps with connecting the services that are on the mainframe in a standard and secure fashion. The web UI allows you to access all these services from a browser UI. And the newest components that's part of the Zowe family is a Visual Studio Code extension called Zowe Explorer, which allows developers or really anybody who is coding on a platform to do those things from Visual Studio Code. Now, we have 3 major goals within Zowe. First one is to actually bridge mainframe and enterprise DevOps. And what is enterprise DevOps? Enterprise DevOps is your pipeline and all of your tooling and your automation that helps you deliver code from coding all the way to production in as much as an automated fashion as possible. And given that's the case, mainframe needs to be a part of that pipeline, and Zowe is really the ultimate interface to use to bridge that gap that exists today. The second portion of it, not technical, it's more cultural. A large part of DevOps is to break down silos. And using the same tools, using the same technology can really help with breaking that silo down. But we also need community around DevOps in order to actually achieve that. And Zowe aims to build that community around mainframe and combining it with DevOps. Now, the third goal that we have is a lot of the technology that we've been used to in the mainframe world hasn't actually been all that exciting for folks coming into the platform. So we're changing that. Just in the last 4 or 5 years or so, the types of tools that we're using to do development on the platform, on the mainframe, has drastically changed. And Zowe in the last 2 years has played a big part in that both from an IDE perspective as well as from an automation perspective, and developers want to be able to do that. Now, where are we going with Zowe? So we listened to our user base and our customers, and they said, the technology is great. It really helps us do what we need in terms of automation as well as interfaces that help developers be more productive. But when we start to scale this out and actually deploy this to all of our user base within the company, we need something that's stable that we can rely on. And that's why we started coming up with the long-term support version of Zowe. What does long-term support mean? So this is something that we've studied other open source projects on and how they go from being something that's new to a mature model where their user base can actually expect stability, longevity, ease of use. That comes from this LTS phase of a release. So Zowe, in March of 2020, started its long-term support release of 1.0. And what that means is you can expect to have 2 years of this release where it'll be in LTS phase, where you'll be receiving maintenance updates, smaller features, but no breaking changes. And overall, that release will be in a stable condition that you can expect and have no issues with using that in a production environment. That is the intent of the LTS release. Now, with the advent of the LTS release, we had to go back and take a look at our conformance program again. So what's our conformance program within Zowe? It allows users and vendors to have an understanding of whether the extensions that are built for Zowe are actually built in the right way, and they'll work in a stable manner with the base of Zowe. So you can see that there's so many plugins and extensions that have been built out for Zowe. And Broadcom is completely dedicated into building these interfaces with Zowe. And it's across our portfolio, so it's not just with our application development tools. Absolutely, that's the core of it. For DevOps, our application development tools such as Endeavor, FileMaster, and so on, those are integrated with Zowe from an API perspective, from a command line perspective, as well as IDE extensions in Visual Studio Code. A lot of our APIs and our CLIs are Zowe conformant. But we don't stop there. We're going across our portfolio, our operations, our systems tools such as CA SysView or OpsMVS and CA Spool, because that is DevOps, right? You've got to marry development tools with operations and systems tools and really break down those silos, bring them together, and make them work beautifully together. And that's exactly what we're doing at Broadcom. Now, I'm talking about Zowe and all these advancements we're making with opening up our services through these integrations. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because DevOps is continuing to evolve, and the concept of shift left is really starting to emerge and shine today. Part of the reason that this is happening is folks are starting to realize that the earlier that you start doing your testing, the better it is. And it's better in two ways. One, the number of bugs and defects that are introduced into your code base is lowered if you start doing more testing early on. The larger reason is that the cost of actually fixing a defect that's out in production is 640 times as much as fixing it if you were to catch it early on in the cycle. Now, just think about the magnitude of that, right? 640 times what it would cost you of finding it and fixing it early on in the cycle. And that is the reason that most companies today are moving towards shift left, where more and more of their testing is done earlier in the cycle. Now, the only way that's achievable, though, is through automation. If everything needs to be tested as part of every code change, imagine how much time would be spent doing that manually. And that's where Zowe comes in. Zowe CLI is the ultimate interface that's provided through Zowe that allows you to actually build this automation through CI/CD pipelines, through test frameworks that allow you to build automated testing. And along with that, you've got a community that you can rely on that's pumping out a lot of scripts that everybody can share and use. And you're no longer restricted to a single CI/CD tool or a DevOps pipeline tool that you might be using. CLIs allow you to script your automation up, and you can easily switch from one pipeline tool to another, or across your enterprise DevOps, there might be different pipeline tools that are employed. And a tool like Zowe CLI allows you to actually take the same automation from one pipeline and use it elsewhere. Another major advantage is the lack of a need for a dedicated agent on these LPARs. You don't have to go around installing a whole bunch of prereqs on your systems. It works with what's already there. So, on the other hand, in addition to automation, you also have to have interfaces, IDEs, that work out for developers today. And that means we started with green screens and ISPF panels. Then we actually moved on and started using Eclipse as an IDE, which was quite a step ahead. But even Eclipse today is not that attractive to new developers. They've moved on to new IDEs such as Visual Studio Code, which has over 11 million users worldwide today. It's lightweight. And what we're doing within Broadcom is we're building a set of extensions packaged into a single extension pack called Code4Z that allows developers as well as any users who are coding on the mainframe platform to be super productive in Visual Studio Code. We're also future-proofing our IDE strategy by building these extensions in such a way that they'll also work in a hosted environment like Eclipse Shea, which means people don't have to install IDEs on their laptops anymore. Now, the breadth of our portfolio of extensions is just continuing to grow. So if you go to the Visual Studio Code marketplace today that's hosted by Microsoft and you search for mainframe or Broadcom, you'll see a variety of extensions there, ranging from COBOL language support to high-level assembler, debugging, Endeavor extensions. And two of our newest extensions in the marketplace are our JCL language support and our COBOL control flow extension. The JCL language support extension allows you to code up JCL with code snippets that help you out, as well as syntax highlighting. And the control flow extension for COBOL actually helps you with understanding the flow of the code within a COBOL program. Now, this is all built using something called LSP, Language Server Protocol, which allows us to actually use this technology to build this in various IDEs, and whether the ones that exist today are something that might come about in the future. So our first demo is going to show you how to actually make some code changes to a COBOL program, test it out, and do all this using the extensions that we have available in the Visual Studio Code marketplace. Now, next, we're shifting over to looking at the automation side of things, because IDEs are one side, and you've got automation that really powers the shift left aspect of DevOps. And this is where CA MAT, which stands for Mainframe Application Tuner, we have a new feature called Performance on Commit. Now, traditionally, MAT has been used as a tool that helps with identifying and debugging performance issues with products. But in the true essence of shift left, we're building interfaces into MAT through Zowe. In fact, Zowe APIs and Zowe CLI that allow you to shift that whole activity left and proactively catch performance issues as part of a CI/CD pipeline, so that once they're caught, you're able to actually have your developers go in and look at details through the MAT Analyze capability. And you're catching performance issues early on. And how does this help? Two major points there. One, you've got your SLA targets. Your transaction times in terms of execution need to meet certain response times. And these kinds of performance tests will be able to catch that early on so you don't get SLA misses in production. Now, second to that is also the fact that there's a cost factor. When you've got large batch applications that process millions of lines of data in databases, you don't necessarily want to introduce loops in there that can cost you so much MIPS overnight when your batch is running. If you're able to run these tests on a smaller subset of the data early on, you're able to catch these issues really early and you're not going to incur such costs. So that's the premise of shifting left performance testing, and CA MAT's performance on commit feature allows you to do that. Next, we're going to go into 2 demos here. I've got Mike Bauer with me, who's the squad lead in Zowe for the CLI squad, and he's going to be doing 2 demos. The first demo is going to focus on IDEs, specifically around how you can make COBOL program changes using a lot of the VS Code extensions that I was mentioning earlier. And then as well as that, how do you actually submit that and test the COBOL programs that you've modified. So he's going to do that demo first. Then he'll go into a second demo, which focuses more on the performance and automated testing that I mentioned with CA MAT. And that'll be demoed through a Jenkins pipeline that's actually orchestrating all those tests after a code change, and it'll give you results back and even let you, look at analysis details that might be triggered if there was something that went wrong with the performance test that was running.
Hello. I'm Michael Bauer, product owner at Broadcom and Zowe CLI squad lead. Today, I'll be demonstrating a modern developer experience while working with a COBOL batch application on the mainframe. This particular application manages oil deliveries, payments, and maintenance transactions. This demonstration will be within Visual Studio Code. VS Code is a very popular and highly extensible text editor. Over the past year, multiple extensions have emerged to enable the effective use of this technology while working with mainframe applications. In this demonstration, we will review source code on the mainframe and a batch job to run transactions. We will then leverage CA/JCL check to ensure our job will run as expected. Finally, we will execute the job and review the output. First, we will leverage Zowe Explorer to review various data sets on the mainframe. We can easily search for datasets by selecting the magnifying glass. In this case, we will leverage a recently used pattern. Next, we will review some COBOL programs. For example, here we see a batch utility to update the account for a delivery. Broadcom's COBOL control flow extension provides graphical visualization of program flow, and Broadcom's COBOL language support extension provides autocomplete, syntax highlighting, and diagnostics for our COBOL code. Next, let's review the batch job to run some transactions. In our Visual Studio Code environment, we have JCL syntax highlighting. We are also able to check our JCL for errors and generate CA/JCL check reports, which can be shared with others in our organization. This is all made possible with Broadcom's JCL language support extension in combination with CA/JCL check. We can easily investigate our JCL further, navigating to the reference JCL lib, and then reviewing the CTL file listing the transactions. Here we see a single transaction for delivery. Now, leveraging Zowe Explorer, we can easily submit the job and then review the job output. So we see it's initially an input state, refresh, it completed successfully with a condition code of 0, and finally, we can see the job output. Let's investigate how the CA MAT detect and analyze plugins for Zowe CLI can help us identify performance issues sooner in the development lifecycle. In this demonstration, we are editing a COBOL batch application, which will then be executed. In this case, we unintentionally change a loop count, which would immediately prolong the execution of the code under the loop and impact performance. The source code for this particular application lives in GitHub. CA Endeavor Bridge for Git handles the synchronization of this code with CA Endeavor, which is a software change management solution on the mainframe. Once we commit and push our changes to the repository and they are propagated into CA Endeavor, a pipeline gets triggered to build the code and begin testing. The first step of the pipeline leverages a Zowe CLI command to generate the element in Endeavor. The next step runs the batch job. While it is executing, CA MAT Detect collects the base performance metrics. The third step retrieves the base metrics via the get command of the CA MAT Detect plugin for Zowe CLI. Then another mat detect command is leveraged to check if there were any performance alerts based on the program run. If mat detect reports that there was a deviation, the pipeline will notify the dev team via email. In addition, mat detect will immediately request a detailed measurement of the misbehaving job from mat analyze for the dev team to review. The email contains base performance metrics such as CPU and elapsed time. The deviations are clearly highlighted, and the job details are provided as well. Mat analyze commands are also provided for further performance analysis. Remember that in the background, Mat has already provided measurement data and basic analysis, which helps us find the root problem. The monitor overview command gives you the base overview of the measurement. From here, we can see the drastic increase of CPU service units. The monitor delay view command shows us that the consumption happened in the actively executing program. The monitor code view module command reports that the deviation happened in the application module. We could have many modules in our program, and this shows us which module is responsible and what kind of module that is. The monitor code view csect command shows us both module and csect, but we are interested at which offset the problem occurred. Well, from delay view, we know that the main consumption was under major and minor categories program active. Now we can pass these categories to the delay view command to drill down to the particular responsible offsets within this delay category. We can see that for our program, there are specific offsets where there was a performance impact. Now, let's open the program listing using the Zowe CLI to look up these particular offset locations. From the listing, we can conclude that all mentioned offsets are located under label subscript 2-100. Now all that is left for us to do is look up this label and find the costly loop.
All right, so those were two exciting demos where we saw developers actually making code changes in the IDE, and then we also saw from a CI/CD pipeline being able to automate your performance testing and really shift left. Now, this is again all powered by the technologies and the integrations that are introduced by Zowe. So Zowe allows you to build APIs, command line interfaces, while keeping mainframe security in place. And that really mirrors what other platforms have done. So if you take AWS, for example, or Google Cloud, you're able to access their services through APIs as well as command line. And that really allows the user base, whether you're a developer, you're a DevOps engineer, whether you're a tester building test automation, you've got your choice of tools, your wide variety of open tools that are available in the market today in order to make code changes or build a CI/CD pipeline or build test automation. So you're not restricted to just the tooling that you saw in the demos. That's just what we've been using internally. So we like to showcase those in the demos, but it truly opens up the platform in such a way that you've got your wide variety of tools. Now, you've seen the value in these open source components and free components that we've actually put in the Visual Studio Marketplace. And a lot of you might be asking the question of, okay, we like this, we want to make this available to all of our users that are working on the mainframe platform. How do I actually deploy it at scale in a secure fashion where all these users are able to use it at the same time? And that's where Brightside comes in. So CA Brightside is an offering from Broadcom that really takes these open source components and elevates it to the next level. One, by offering enterprise-grade support. So we bring Broadcom's award-winning 24/7 support into these open source components where, just like any other product from Broadcom, you can expect that same level of support from Broadcom for Brightside that covers the open components. Second, we're also adding features that make the functionality that's powered by these open source components and really elevates it to the next level. Both from a maintainability perspective as well as from a functionality perspective. All right, so you've got the technology, you've got the support from Brightside, but how do you actually get your organization's priorities in place and all of your folks actually trained up to use it in the right way? So we understand there can be challenges there. So what we've done at Broadcom is we've put together 4 no-fee offerings at no charge to you that we believe can absolutely put you on the path to success with adopting DevOps. And you can pick and choose what makes sense for your organization. Each organization is very different. So we've got a design thinking workshop that's a 1-day on-site facilitated session where we really peel the layers, help you understand what challenges you have, what goals you might have, and what sort of roadblocks you might have. Break down the silos between your development organization, your systems and IT organization, and really bring them together and figure out what the priorities are and come out with a roadmap that helps you actually navigate your DevOps and priorities that can be executed on later. From there, we've got a second offering, which again, you don't have to go in order. You're able to pick and choose what makes sense for you, but the environment preparation offering really helps you with installing the prereqs that are needed on the system for your particular roadmap in DevOps. So, you might need ZOSMF installed. You might need some APIs set up and secured. We are here to help with that with 1 or 2 weeks of on-site help that we're able to provide from a services perspective. Next, we've got our hands-on workshop. This is the one where your folks, your developers, your testers, your DevOps engineers, they might not be familiar with the tooling that's available out there. And in this 2-day workshop, we really walk you through a lot of use cases that are quite common, such as building a CI/CD pipeline or doing some automated testing, where they're actually able to learn how to use the technology hands-on, take that back to their teams, and really disperse that knowledge and put it to work. Finally, if there are specific use cases that you really want to pursue short term and you've got the design kind of worked out, we're here to help with actually executing on that proof of concept and deliver this mutually defined POC to get you started. So if you're interested in any of these DevOps Journeys offerings, please go to our website, our mainframe dedicated website, and from there you'll be able to go into the DevOps section and you'll fill out a form there to actually request a design thinking workshop. Now I see that a lot of you have been asking questions, so we're going to transition into our Q&A portion where I'm really excited to actually look at what questions you might have today for us that we can get answered.
Hi everybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat window, and I will attempt to unmute. And you should all have the capability to unmute yourselves if you want to ask it live. Any questions?
Hey, Sujay, if you're talking, you might be on mute there. See.
Whoops, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, just as you guys are, maybe asking questions, I just wanted to point out on the chat, I did provide some links to some of those extensions that you saw Mike demo there. They're all available for free on the Microsoft Visual Studio Code Marketplace. And then also the automation that Mike was showing using CA-MAT and the Zowe CLI plugin, I also provided a link there. Both are just on open downloadable links from there. You don't need to go to Broadcom pages to download them.
I will also provide a link in the chat. Sujay, you mentioned a lot of conformant APIs and CLI plugins, so I'll provide a link to our conformance page in the chat if folks are interested in any Zowe integrated APIs or CLI plugins. Feel free to check out this link as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And that would include any vendor publishing plugins beyond just Broadcom.
And Andy, you've asked a question about a link to the presentation. The presentation will be uploaded and available on the GSE website. Go through the main agenda. It should be available from tomorrow. And Len, are you trying to connect? Your audio doesn't seem to be connecting.
And one more comment I'll make. I did get some private questions about what other products we have Zowe CLI or APIs for. So what I would encourage folks to do is, take a look at the link that Mike provided. That has a list of APIs and CLI plugins from Broadcom as well as from other vendors who are participating in the Zowe ecosystem. If you don't see a product on there that you'd like to integrate into your DevOps process, build some automation around, just contact us, contact Broadcom, contact, even if it's a different vendor, feel free to contact them. I think, we're all in a situation right now where we're trying to understand what your priorities are when it comes to integrating a lot of these mainframe actions into these DevOps pipelines. And we've obviously prioritized some of these products, but we would love to hear from all of you on what makes sense to focus on when it comes to integrating into Zowe.
Okay, if we've got no more questions, we'll close the call. Don't forget to fill in your feedback form and contribute to the charity.